Today, we're going to unpack the story of Google, a company that started out as a project in a university and somehow ended up completely changing how we find, well, just about everything.
I mean, seriously, think about it. It's the ultimate Silicon Valley legend, right? But Google's story is just different. How on earth did a couple of PhD students build one of the most powerful companies in history? Well, let's get into it. All right, so let's rewind the clock. We're going back to 1996 at Stanford University. This is where our main characters, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, came up with an idea that was, frankly, revolutionary. And that project had this kind of goofy name, BackRub. Yeah, BackRub. But the name actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. The whole point was to analyze the web's backlinks, to see which sites were pointing to other sites. Now, the secret sauce inside BackRub was this absolutely brilliant algorithm they called PageRank. The concept was so elegant. It basically said, hey, a link from one page to another, that's a vote. It's just like how scientists cite each other's papers. The more votes a page got from important pages, the higher it ranked. It was genius.
And you have to understand, this was a complete game changer. Back then, other search engines were super easy to fool. You could just stuff a web page with the same word over and over again to get a high rank. But PageRank was different. It didn't care about how many times you used a word. It cared about authority and trust. This was a massive shift from just quantity to actual quality, and it changed everything.
So you've got this amazing academic project, right? But how do you actually get it out of the university and turn it into a real live company? Well, for them, it happened incredibly fast. First things first, they had to ditch the name BackRub. They chose Google, which was a clever misspelling of Google. That's the number 1 followed by 100 zeros. And it was perfect, right? It totally captured their massive ambition to organize a seemingly infinite web. And just look at this timeline. It really shows you how insane their momentum was. We're talking about going from a research idea to a registered domain to getting their first major investment and becoming an actual company, all in about 2 years. It was just a total whirlwind. And this check right here, this was the spark. Andy Bechtolsheim, one of the founders of Sun Microsystems, saw a quick demo and was so blown away that he wrote them a check for $100,000, right there on the spot. The best part? He made it out to Google Inc., which didn't exist yet. So Larry and Sergey had to rush to incorporate the company just so they could cash the check. And with that cash, Google was born. In a garage, they rented it from Susan Wojcicki, who, by the way, later became the CEO of YouTube. And the whole vibe was just super quirky from day one. I mean, their very first server rack was built out of Legos. And the first ever Google Doodle? It was basically an out-of-office message, a little stick figure to tell everyone the founders were at the Burning Man festival. Okay, so the money is in the bank, the company is real, and now things are about to go into overdrive. It became very clear, very fast, that Google had its sights set on being way more than just a search engine. The real rocket fuel came in 2004 with their IPO. Going public basically turned them into a multi-billion-dollar company overnight, and that gave them a war chest of cash to think even bigger, buy other companies, and just expand like crazy. And their growth was so methodical. They launched Gmail, and that free gigabyte of storage was unheard of at the time. Then came Maps, which totally changed how we get around. Buying YouTube was an absolute masterstroke. And then, with Android and Chrome, they took over our phones and our web browsers. You see what they were doing? They weren't just making products. They were building an entire digital ecosystem. So, fast forward to 2015. Google is this massive, sprawling empire. They're doing search, ads, self-driving cars, healthcare, you name it. It was getting so complex that they knew they needed to shake things up to get ready for the future. And that shakeup was huge. They basically created a new parent company called Alphabet. Think of it this way. The core Google business, search, ads, YouTube, Android, was put into one neat box. And all the other crazier, more futuristic projects got their own separate boxes, all living under this big Alphabet umbrella. It was a really smart way to stay focused. So when you zoom out and look at this whole epic journey, from a dorm room to a garage to a global megacorporation, what's the one thing, the one thread that ties it all together? What's been the North Star from the beginning? It really all comes back to this one sentence. This has been their mission statement from day one. And pretty much every major thing they've ever done, from search to Maps to Google Books, has been guided by this simple, incredibly ambitious idea.
And that leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on. Their goal was to organize all of the world's information. So, what happens when they actually pull it off? What does it mean for our future when so much of our digital world is managed by one company? That's definitely something to think about.